Hello and welcome to Upstack America's Oracle EBS Financials Functional Training. My name is Bob and I'm the lead senior consultant for Upstack America. And with me today I have Victor, who is also a senior consultant. And today we are handling lesson 3 of the receivables module. And Victor, please walk us through.
Thank you, Bob, for the introduction. Welcome everybody to our session in our financial functionals training series. So in this session, we are going to cover part of the setup for receivables. Actually, let me say we are going to finish it so that we can have a receivables module that is ready for using for transactions and other customizations. Okay. So let us remind ourselves again of the steps we have said we are going to follow. We have already done the first three. We have a responsibility, and we already assigned operating units to it, and we already assigned it to our user. Of course, we had the legal entities and operating units created when we were setting up our payables application. We also took a sneak peek at system options and overview of what they are and the kind of things we can configure there. So we just looked at it. We didn't go to the system, and that's what we are going to do. And we are also going to look at the periods and how to manage periods, okay, and the monthly cycle for receivables. So again, just to remind ourselves, these are some of the system options that you can set up on the system options window. And like I said, they are under 4 tabs, which we are going to see when we go to that window. This is the navigation that we use to go to the system options window. Go to Oracle. I don't know whether this is a current session. Let me just log out. So here is the responsibility we created. Okay. So I'm going to go to my receivables responsibility. These are the menu options for receivables. What we want is a setup, then system, then system options. Follow that navigation. This is the window. So as I said, those options that we have there are not those options that we had there are not arranged in that order that I showed you. They're under these 4 tabs. Okay. The other thing that I had mentioned before is that these settings are operating unit specific. What do you get when you click this tab? You get the ledger. Okay, so you'll select my ledger here, which should be Mascani Group US ledger. Now I realized I had erroneously told you that on the accounting options, one of the accounts that we enter is receivables. It's not receivables. These are the accounts that we enter here. We have a realized gains account and realized losses account for losses in exchange rate variance, okay, or gains. If you're receiving payments or receipts in a foreign currency. The other mandatory account that we have to specify is this one for your tax liability. because you're collecting tax that you need to remit to the government, right? So these are the two accounts that are mandatory. We have other accounts here that I had mentioned, okay? And by looking at their names, maybe you can figure out what some of them are for, okay? We have like this one for cross currency rounding that we had talked about in our previous session. So I have already created these accounts in my value set, okay? The realized gains and losses account, I created them as one. Some implementations will have you have them as separate accounts, just as the way we have seen in places like what? FA, when we are creating our gains and losses accounts for retirement. So I am going to use one account as a revenue type account for this. I also created my tax account, liability account, okay? So if I click here, I should just be able to select. So this is the account I'm talking about. This is, what are we looking for here? Gains and losses. So this is the one I created, 4400. It's a revenue type account. The reason I'm doing it this way is by now you already know how to do those things very well. So I don't need to demonstrate the creation of those accounts. I also need to enter tax account. That's mandatory. It's a liability type because you're supposed to send this to the government or whatever jurisdiction. So this is the tax account that I created. I entered the combination. We are not going we're not going to enter any of these other accounts. They're not mandatory also. We have other options here. For example, automatic journal import. We had talked about this pertains the AR to GL transfer, and you can choose to have your journals automatically imported into GL. This tab is for transactions and customers. We are not really going to make any changes in this other tabs, but we are going to just look at them so we can see some of those options that we are talking about. Like I said, they are not arranged in a very orderly manner, but you can see, for example, under some of these headers, transactions, these are transactions options. You have options like allow change to printed transactions. When you print a transaction, that means you've printed and sent the invoice to the customer. So does the system allow you to make changes to transactions which you have already printed? Allow payment of unrelated transactions is another option you can have. When you create a transaction, you send the invoice to the customer sends you a payment, right? And that payment, you create a receipt and apply it to the transaction for which you had created, okay? But this option allows you to allow a payment for a transaction which is not associated with that particular receipt. You also have the auto invoice options that I had mentioned. This is, for example, when you're entering transactions from an external system into the interface tables for AR, so that you can then import them into AR. So these options here, for example, you can choose to purge those interface tables at some point, okay? And then you have the customer options, numbering, and for the customer numbers and the site numbering, okay? And we also have these other options such as create reciprocal customer. This is another page which we are not going to touch for now, okay? The settings that are here, they will work for us. We also have this miscellaneous tab where you can enter things such as what split amount. What is split amount? Split amount, it allows you to like query transactions with this value being the reference point. So, for example, let's say that this company that we are implementing receivables for, it sends invoices, the products it sells to the customers or the services, they only come in two different prices, like 800 and 1,200. So the transactions that are going to be in the system will be for those amounts. It will either be for 800 or for 1,200. So if you have 1,000 as a split amount, then you can say, I want to see all the transactions with the amount below 1,000, and I want to see all the transactions with the amount above 1,000. So this is the reference point. So if you say below, you will see all those transactions for what? For 800. And if you say above, you will see all the transactions for 1,200. Something like that. This another thing, days sale outstanding calculation. You can want to check the outstanding sales which you have not collected payments for, okay? And you can maybe use this number of days as the limit of checking which of your transactions, for example, have not received you have not received payment for. So those are just the different options that you can have. You also have the print options we have talked about, such as a print remit to address on the invoices, or the print home country, okay? So these are options you can have, all right? So let's take a small break and we'll resume from there. So those are the system options that we can set up for receivables for our operating unit. Remember, I said that we do system option setup for operating units. It's operating unit specific. So if you have another operating unit, you'll have to come to this page and do the settings for that one too, okay, through the applicable responsibility. So those are the settings we are going to use for now. The system options we are going to use. You can save your work. And let's go back to our slides. So now let's talk about the periodic cycle. If we go back to the setup steps that we had outlined, we have configured the system options. So now we are ready to open the first period, okay? So we want to understand first the periodic cycle for receivables before we can go and open the period. So this is the cycle. When you open a period, you can then enter transactions, okay? So if you sell a service, you will get, or a product, those are transactions which you can enter manually or import into AR. After you enter transactions, you have to complete them, which means it's saying that these transactions are ready to be applied receipts. And then you print and send your transactions to the client as their invoices. So when they receive your invoice, they will send you a payment. That payment you will enter in the system as a receipt which you apply to the transaction, okay? And then you can close your period. So of course, this is not like something that you do in this order. This is something that happens as the transactions come in. But apart from this, of course, there's also the other part whereby you manage customers, because these transactions have to be associated with customers. So if you don't have a customer, you will have to create them when you get one, and you keep updating them if you get new customers, all right? So apart from that, we then have the period statuses for receivables, and we have 5 of them. We have not opened, so pretty self-explanatory. You can't enter transactions here. You have future, which is a concept you've seen in the other modules. Future enterable we saw it in GL, we saw it in payables. So you can enter transactions here, but you can't post them, okay? Then you have open, where you can enter transactions and post them. And then you have close pending. So you can put a period in close pending status. You cannot enter transactions here. You cannot post them, okay? But there's also a difference between closed and close pending. You can put a period into close pending status if they are incomplete transactions, but you cannot close a period if there are incomplete transactions yet, okay? So of course, after that there's closed, and that means nothing can happen there. So you can take a period from not opened to future, or not open to open, or you can take it from if you take it from not open to future, then you have to go again from future to open. So those are the period statuses in receivables. So if we want to go to control our periods, this is the navigation that we use. Control accounting, then choose the open close periods. These periods, they use the same calendar as the one we created in GL, your accounting calendar, but managing the periods is different between modules, okay? So, I mean, there will be different users maybe who are managing the periods in payables to those in receivables. But it's the same accounting calendar that we created when we were doing our first setup in GL. So let's follow this navigation. I'm still logged in as receivables manager, so should go to control and accounting, was it? And open close periods. So you can see this is the same calendar, right? And this is our ledger here. So this is the calendar associated with our ledger setup. So you can select the period that you want to open. So we are currently in February, though just a few days left. So maybe we can put this as open, and then maybe we can put this as future enterable. So of course, this is something that will be very well controlled in a production instance. So you just don't open and close periods the way you want. In the production instance, there's a process for that. So looks like we are good. We can save that. If we go back to our slides, we will see that we have done the setup required to have a workable payables receivables module. So from now we can start doing other specific options for that a client might want, or other settings that will influence how the application functions. So that is going to be what we are going to start on in our next session. Anyway, Bob, unless you have something to add, we can end the lesson there.
Thank you.
Thank you.